Hello, thanks for joining me again. So today we're going to be making this winter scene card, and we're going to be using the Winter Build-A-Scene stamp set from Fun Stamper's Journey. This is an ATS stamp set, so it's a little bit smaller sized set, which actually means a little better price point for you. So we're going to be using the chambray shirt cardstock to create the background of our scene, and I'm going to be inking that with Denim Days and Rock Candy ink. Now I'm using the small daubers to do this. In all honesty, the large dauber probably would have been a better option. However, I have small pads for the daubers with every ink color, and so that's just what I went with when I grabbed it. But I do think that the larger pad would have been a little bit better for such a large area that I'm inking. So this is a hybrid ink, which means that it's going to take just a little bit more work to get it to blend out quite as smoothly as I would like, which means a little bit more back and forth. You can see that every time I bring the dauber to the panel, I'm starting on the outside edge and blending in. That concentrates the ink color to the outside edge of that cardstock and gives me a darker feel there. And then I am going to come in with the rock candy and I'm going to actually deepen that up right there at the top to make sure it's really dark right there along the top edge. I want that to fade down and make a really nice blend. So I'm going to come back in with the Denim Days one more time, and I'm just going to make sure that that rock candy is blended into the blue just really nicely. And then I'm bringing my pad down just to make sure I'm getting a nice smooth blend all the way through. So I'm pulling in my Confectionery Days Pan Pastel. Now I'm working pretty quickly. This is sped up just a little bit, but I am still working pretty quickly. Pan Pastel will actually it sticks to the cardstock regardless, but with that ink on there, it's actually going to stick a little even better. So I'm using the sponge that comes with the set, and I'm just dabbing it in, dabbing it off on my grid paper, and then I am applying it to the card, and I'm using little short curved strokes. This first color, I'm kind of going almost everywhere throughout the middle of that card with it, and I'm switching over to the cleaner side of the sponge and going from side to side as I'm stroking, just to help continue the motion that I'm applying that Pan Pastel with. So I'm going to switch colors and I'm going to apply some pink on top of that. Now on the video, this does not look like there's a lot of color to it, but in person you can actually differentiate the colors just a little bit. So that's why I'm using multiple colors instead of just one color to create this kind of haze. And you saw me drawing kind of a little bit of like a reverse S shape. Again, I'm just trying to add movement to this background. So keeping things in a curved shape, keeping things in kind of an S shape, it just is more natural and organic in terms of how the movement is going. So once I have the haze kind of applied the way that I wanted, I'm coming in with Sparkle Silk and I'm adding stars to the background with the Sparkle Silk. I love this glitter effect with the Sparkle Silk. It's just so pretty. So I'm going to set that aside for a minute. I'm taking a piece of tin pill cardstock and I'm going to use a pencil here really quick to mark out where that ink fades away on the background on that blue piece. That's going to help me as I get ready to actually cut this tin pail piece. This is going to become our snowy slope in the card. So I'm going to pull in my platinum die cutting machine. And then I'm going to go grab my die set for this. And I'm using the Heartfelt die set. I'm going to actually use that largest heart. Now I'm not cutting a heart shape. I'm using the edge of that heart to die cut my slope. I've done this before to get kind of an S curve on the bottom of a panel on a card. I love the way that these dies actually help with that, because this large heart is actually almost a little too large for a card. And so it's kind of become a really good die to use to get a curved effect on something. So I went ahead and cut that slope, and I'm just kind of fitting it to the card base right now. I'm going to take a pencil, and I've pulled the slope down just a hair, and I traced the edge of that slope with the pencil. That's going to give me a mark so that now I can go do my stamping on that blue panel and know where my elements should be placed. So I'm going ahead and stamping in black licorice ink, and I went ahead and stamped the reindeer, and I'm going to start stamping the little trees. Now with this ink, when you stamp the first time, it's a first generation stamp, but when you stamp the second time, it's actually a third generation. It's much lighter, and by stamping twice with these stamps, I'm actually getting a little more depth because it makes it look like there's trees that are further behind than the ones that are in the forefront, which are the darker ones. So you can see me stamping off on the side of my grid paper there, just to add a few more of those lighter trees to the background. Now I'm going to pull in my Journey Color Burst pencils, and I am only using 2 pencils on this, but what I'm using is the cream pencil and then the lighter green pencil, and I'm going to add some highlight to our stamped images. So I'm just going right on the edges where the light would be hitting the top of this deer, down its haunches where it would round out. And this is just going to add a little bit of depth to this deer because it looks like the moonlight's kind of reflecting off of him. Then I'm going in, and this is literally a scribble stroke. I'm going up and down and up and down and across the page. It's just not even attempting to color nicely. I'm just literally doing a scribble across these trees. This is just going to add a little bit of that green color to those trees that are in the forefront, and it's also going to give a little bit of a pine needle effect. It's going to give those trees just a little bit more dimension with this. And then I'm going to grab my cream, and I'm going to use the exact same technique, but I'm going to do it on the trees that are further back. So these are all those second stamped images, so they're the third generation stamping, the lighter stamp. And again, this is just a scribble. It goes very, very fast doing this. I think I probably did this whole coloring piece in no time at all. So now we're ready to adhere our slope to the card, and I'm just kind of getting it put into position so that it looks right. The slope hits the bottom of all those stamps, and everything's just kind of lined up with it. I'm going to use a little bit of the Journey Craft Glue to go ahead and put that on. That gives me the ability to kind of fuss with it just a little bit before it's actually fully dry. And I'm going to pull in my die cut machine again. This time I'm going to be using the Journey Rectangles die set, and I'm going to be using the largest 2 dies in this set. So one is a cutting die that will cut my card front, and the other is a piercing die that's going to pierce little holes around the edge. Now, because these are 2 separate dies, it's actually fun because you can use the piercing die separate from the die cutting die, but it does take just a second to line them up. I'm really like the magnetic platform for this because it does help to hold it in place as you're cutting. So I'm just going to get this machine out of the way and pull off that piercing die. So because this went through 2 layers of cardstock where I had the slope, that's why I went through with the extra passes on it. I wanted to make sure that it pierced through that double layer of cardstock. I'm adding a little bit of that purple pan pastel again. That's going to add a little bit of shadow to that hill. So it's going to give it kind of, I don't want to go too dark on anything, but I do want to give it just a little bit of shading. So I'm using foam squares on the back side of this panel. I use a lot of foam squares. I go through a ton. But I want to make sure that that panel is very well secured and it's not going to dent in or anything. And I'm attaching that to a A2 card base that's top folding. This is just whipped cream cardstock. As I laid it down, that top corner was a little funny, so I had to peel it up and then put it back down again. So now I want to add something to the snow. So what I'm doing here is I'm just putting a little bit of that craft glue on my surface, my work surface here, and I'm using my finger to apply this because I want this to be directional. It's the same kind of technique that we were doing with the pan pastel. I want there to be a little bit of movement. So I'm using my finger to apply it kind of along that same curve as the slope with it. And then I'm going to add some sparkle dust to this. And that's going to give the snow kind of a glittery appearance. This is not going to be perfect. If you want perfect, you could apply it with a brush or something. I wanted something that kind of gave it the look like there was a little bit of movement to that snow. So that's the card for today. I hope you enjoyed. Much love to you all, and I hope I see you in the next video. Bye!